Welcome to this week's Down Him with Tina show. I'm your host, Tina Thompson, and I'm so excited. You know, Memorial Day has just taken place, and I wanted to have a couple of fellas that I have known for many, many years, and one of them I haven't even seen for probably 25 years, I want to say. So it's really nice when you get to catch up with old friends, especially when they're veteran friends, and just to hear their stories and a little bit about why they joined and what it is that they wanted to, you know, just share with everybody and to let you all know. And one of them, he still is just still an amazing man that, and well, both of them I look up to, and they're those people who are like your mentors, and that when you start out in life, these two were good, upstanding gentlemen that I'm really glad that I had and had the chance to know. Don't go anywhere. Their stories are coming up next on Down Him with Tina.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Dagger Law has been part of the Lancaster community for more than 110 years. This is where we live and work. You'll see us at festivals, sporting events, and all around town. We consider our clients as friends, and we walk alongside you through challenging times. Whether you're a growing business, a changing family, facing litigation, planning your future, or dealing with land issues, we're right here. We are local. We are trusted. We are experienced. Dagger Law.
Welcome back to Down Him with Tina. I'm so super excited about the two guests that I have on this week's show. I have known them, but time passes and you go on to do your thing, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about here in just a second. I was enjoying the United States Army Reserves, many of you know that, in 1990. It was right out of high school, and my first unit was 2291st, United States Army Hospital. Yes. And it's been a long time, so I've got Harry Evans with me, which Harry was at that time Lieutenant Colonel. You were Lieutenant Colonel
Yes.
at that time, right? You didn't go up in rank or anything. 'Cause
No.
when I joined, it was in August of 90, and then as I got out of my AIT, our unit was already activated. And so for Desert Storm, Desert Shield. And you guys, I can't remember the wave, so this is all about you, and I'm so excited to have you as a veteran. Memorial Day just took place, so, and that, of course, is a huge time to remember all of our fallen heroes. However, we're going to talk about you. And Harry, thank you and welcome. Thank you so much for coming down and visiting.
Thank you,
visiting.
Tina, for having us.
We have had some really amazing times, but you had times way before I was even around. Being Lieutenant Colonel, of course, you have to work your way up. So my first question is, why did you decide to join the United States, and was it the Army that you started out in?
Yes, it was the Army. When I went to Ohio State, now this was a long time ago, I started at Ohio State in 1965. And at that time, and this hasn't been the case for many, many years, but at that time, particularly if you were a male, when you started at Ohio State, you would have some options as to certain classes and courses that you took. And one of those options and a requirement at that time was to take ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps. And you didn't have to do that, but the alternative was to take, at least as my perception, was more difficult classes than taking ROTC, because I figured all you'd have to do is get into a uniform, and you didn't even have to fit into it properly. Just get into a uniform, and then you would march around at that time we would kind of march around the stadium parking lot. They never let us in the stadium, but we could march around the stadium parking lot, and then you would have classes like once or twice a week, but nothing academic in nature. You know, it wasn't like mathematics or physics or anything like that. So I thought that would be I already had enough tough courses to take in my opinion. So I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and take ROTC, and then you have a choice. There's the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, and I chose the Army. I didn't really understand the ranks in the Navy, so I didn't want to even bother with that. And the Army uniform, I mean, it would be a stretch to say it was a great uniform. That's not the case, but it actually, the dress uniform and so forth actually didn't look bad. Now I don't think I ever wore that, but the dress uniform didn't look bad in the Army, and I did understand the ranks. And my father was in the Army during Second World War, so I just went that route, and it was interesting. So I guess I started primarily because I didn't want to take tougher courses.
I love it.
Yeah,
Everybody's story is different.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah,
love that. No,
yeah.
that's
now,
great.
Obviously, it's been years and years since those were the requirements at Ohio State and probably a bunch of other colleges. But at least that was the beginning. And then after a couple years, that obligation was gone. But then you would go into advanced ROTC, and you got a stipend for that. It wasn't very much money at that time. Comparatively, it probably still isn't very much money, but there was a certain amount of money you could get, which would help with books and tuition.
Nice.
At that time, things were obviously tuition. We weren't talking about the kind of tuition they're talking about today.
Oh, yeah.
I was more like $100 a quarter or something like that. But that in that last 2 years, that was a pretty big asset to me to be able to have a little bit of spending money and buy a few books here and there and stuff like that. So I stayed in ROTC for the entire 4 years and went through a lot of training, went through quite a bit of training, and it actually, whereas it certainly wasn't academically too challenging, but there was a lot of challenge to it, not only the physical aspect of it, but you went into tactics and things like that.
Did you move on after that to
Yes.
go active
So,
duty?
yep.
Then?
So
that was the obligation?
So the obligation was 2 years of active duty at that time, and then there was also a total. It was like a 6-year total obligation, which at that time meant once you got done with active duty, most people would go into the reserves for a while. And so right after I graduated, became a second lieutenant. Went to went on active duty in April of 1970, May of 1970, one of those. Anyway, went in April, and in my case, I was a Medical Service Corps officer, which meant I took officer basic at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, a lovely post.
I've heard that.
A lovely place. Anyway, I just really love San Antonio. And then after Officer Basic, the wife and I packed up the car and went out to Fort Ord, California, and right on the West Coast, so stayed there for a couple years. When they first asked us about, when you're in Officer Basic, you get, they come and say, where would you like to be stationed for your initial duty assignment. So I was from the East Coast, so I put 3 places as my choices, 3 choices, 3 places in the eastern part of the country, because I'd never been out west, and I guess I just never really wanted to go out west. But in any event, I put like Fort Devens, which used to be in Massachusetts, it's been gone for a while, and then Fort Knox, and I think some other place. And then a good friend I had there was from California. He was from the West Coast. and he put all of his preferences on the West Coast, including Fort Ord. And I mean, we were identical, same training, the same rank, the same MOS. Everything was the same. You couldn't tell the difference between us. And then when we got our assignments, I ended up being assigned, I was from Columbus, Ohio, so I ended up being assigned to Fort Ord, California, and this guy was from California, and he ended up being assigned to Fort Devens, Massachusetts. So we just went out to the officers club that evening at Fort Sam and we just drank and just said, how would the Army do this to us? I mean, it's the exact opposite.
How dare they?
Yeah.
How dare they?
It's the exact opposite of what we each wanted. But you just learn to live with it. I mean, the Army just has its way.
Right.
And not just the Army, the military. And sometimes I don't know that there's a lot of common sense to it or whatever, but it worked out pretty well, and I enjoyed my time out at Fort Ord.
How many years were you in total? Because
2
you
years.
didn't stop. Well, when you went into reserves,
and
but
then
you didn't stop.
Yeah, then I went into reserves and spent a total of 27.
So you had a love for it.
Yes.
What's your favorite place that you ever visited or experienced?
Oh, I would say my had a lot of good times with you guys, and obviously with Dave and others at just about every place we went. I would say I really enjoyed Fort Sam Houston.
Yeah.
I also enjoyed the Washington, D.C. area, the Pentagon. I wasn't ever really stationed at the Pentagon, but did spend there were occasional classes and stuff like that you would have. But I would say Fort Sam is probably my favorite place. But I really enjoyed all the places we went to. And then during most of our reserve time, Tina, I was at the same place that you that we first met you, and that was in Whitehall, the Whitehall Center. So spent 20 years there. So
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, and you are one of two, of course, my next guest is my other veteran of the month for the month of June, that I really think, knowing you, and this is something that I think also has helped me, and to have becoming the good upstanding citizen adult that I think I am, and watching you guys and just being around you, and that wherever you went and whatever experience you had, I have a feeling you made the best of it, because you were that guy that it just seemed like anytime you walked into a room, you were smiling. We
always tried to do that. We did. Obviously, there's
tough times,
but a lot of really good times, and we did have good time with each other and so forth. I always thought, and I still believe this to be the case, and unfortunately not enough people can take advantage of it anymore, simply because, we just don't have as many people in the military, and probably don't need as many people in the military as we may have at one time. But I always thought it's such a diversity in the ranks. You've got people from all over the country. You've got people with a lot of different traditions, and different backgrounds and so forth and so on. And yet, once you got into the military, it just kind of made a sameness, a commonality, the desire to serve, or even if you didn't have a big desire to serve, you got to the point where you did your job, and you made sure you did your job, and everybody was kind of on the same team.
That's
and
it.
That's what it was, that commonality that I always really liked, and in my case, I experienced it for a long time, until November of 1996 when I retired. But that 27 years was really a tremendous period of just learning and experiencing different things and being around an awful lot of really, really, really good people.
I agree.
That I would you can't replace that.
Absolutely not.
And
yeah.
I still am working for the state of Ohio, for Ohio State University, which I deeply enjoy and all that stuff. But it, even as good as it is, it just, the best time was in the military with all of the different people and all of the different things that we did. And I will always remember that for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Harry, thank you. And you're not going anywhere. You and Dave are going to be together at the end, and then I'll ask you a question there. That's kind of scaring me, but we'll be back. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere, you either. It's Down Him with Tina.
Hi again, everybody. Welcome to the high school football game of the week. I'm Jaron Stewart alongside Tim Shoemaker. Tonight, we've got a great one for you. The Bloom Carroll Bulldogs.
We had a great week of practice. Even in the rain and the weather, we had a great week of practice.
Schneider, lots of running room to midfield. He's gone. Run Schneider down the near sideline for a touchdown for the Aces.
We have a hold on the offense, number 20. That penalty will be declined. They'll bring up fourth down.
We're going to give you this game ball here because you're a Tiberios fan of the game, and thanks for being here, Jacob.
Thank you.
The Polar Bears are your OAC tournament champions, first time since 2009. What an exciting finish for the Ohio Northern Polar Bears.
And be very proud of this trophy because you've earned it.
Welcome back. It is Down Home with Tina, and I have a fella who was my very first company commander. When I say, well, I can't say that it was when I had joined the Army Reserves, because I had basic training in AIT, which you have, of course, other officers that are over you and sergeants and all of that good stuff. But when I got out of the basic training in AIT and went on to my reserve unit, you were my first, but were you around? Well, see, I say that before I even get to finding out your history. But were you around at that time, or were you activated already in the first wave? Because we had two different waves.
I think I was activated already.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, we took off when you came in. When did you come in? And like January after basic training?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we left first part of December.
Okay, that's what I thought, because there were two different waves in our reserve unit folks, and that's how it worked at that time, because we were the United States Army Hospital Unit. So what did we do? We went to take over, not take over, but what did you guys do that went over? And
we
then there were some that stayed
well,
in the
those
States.
who actually deployed in theater went as combat casualty replacements, which is a reassuring phrase. You know? Yeah, we hadn't really been in anything since Grenada, whatever that was, Panama, you know, and then Vietnam. So this was kind of a new thing to us, and we didn't really, I mean, new to, we had some Vietnam vets still in the military, but most of us, it was, you know, the whole thing of going into combat was a little unnerving.
Oh, absolutely. And then, but we are going to keep it, and as much as we can, as a positive thing. And we're going to switch back now as to when did you decide to enlist and why? And was there somebody that inspired you, Dave?
I think my dad, more than anything else.
I didn't even tell people you're Captain Dotson, who I always call you Captain Dotson. I didn't even announce who you were yet. Captain Dotson, but you retired as a major.
Correct.
Now you can continue. Sorry about that. I was like, I can't even tell you. I'm just expecting everybody to know who you are, because I've known you for years.
Honestly, just about every generation, all the way back to the French-Indian War, my family's had somebody in the military. So, you know, it's kind of bred into us. My dad was a Marine in World War II. I was a little bit disappointed I didn't join the Marines, but oh well. He came to terms with that after the fact. But so, you know, just a long-standing family tradition of service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what was it like for you when you joined? Were you ready to go, ready to gear into, and what year was that?
It was 1983, I was a senior in college and thought, why not? And so, and I had my roommate was actually an Air Force ROTC, and I thought, well, I can't do the same thing he is, so I went Army ROTC. And so I went through basic training, and then went in and did my last 2 years as ROTC, and then was commissioned after I came out in '85.
Did you decide to just because you were like, I want to, or did you think about it? Because you said you were a senior in college.
Yeah. That had always been in the back of my mind. And I think for most of us who are military, tradition is a very important thing. Mm-hmm. And, you know, my family had a tradition. I didn't fortunately, my parents didn't, you know, beat me over the head and say, you have to do this. But I felt honor bound to find some form of public service. And the military was just, it fit.
Were you ever active duty?
Yes, but primarily when I didn't want to be. And don't ask me where my favorite place. I'll tell you, it was not Iraq.
That was your least favorite. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think I remember one time years ago when we were all in, you sharing a little bit of story about that. Yeah. So, what was your favorite? Do you have a favorite place that you spent time? Because did you ever do any active duty special work?
No.
Okay.
Not. I mean, we all did to a degree, but you know, nothing that I would love to say. Well, I can't really talk about it.
Right. Oh yeah. But,
you know, James Bond over here.
But no. Yeah.
No, I didn't.
So no, like special place. What was it like for you when it came to the people that you knew and you worked with and got to know and met?
Honestly, and I have to agree with Harry, you know, with the colonel. You know, it was, I learned a lot of lessons. You know, I went through college, through grad school, management school, and I probably learned more about leadership and management in the military than in any other way. Regardless of whether it was my civilian occupation, it was, I just learned more about it. And a large part is I had great mentors like the colonel. You know, it's, you know, I feel fortunate. I got more from the Army than it took from me.
Awesome. That's the awesome way to say that. I love that. And how many years total were you in before
22.
you retired? 22 years. And worked your way up from, well,
I went in as an E3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you
when
were,
I went through basic training.
Okay.
And
so
that
you were
was simply
enlisted,
because,
actually, then.
simply because of all the college credits I had, because I was a senior in college. So I went in as an E3, came out as a cadet in the reserves, which is the equivalent of an E5, which is a sergeant for those of you that don't know, and then got my commission upon completion of ROTC. And
so you did go in enlisted. How did I not know that? Yeah, I didn't know that.
Actually, I'm proud of that because I think everyone should go through basic training. You know, just get knocked down a few pegs. You know.
Yeah, I think that because I've met others that ended up being officers that started out and enlisted, and some of those who you ended up, I want to say, becoming pretty good friends with were. Not everybody, but were. It's just, it gives an understanding of, we pretty much ate sand, ate dirt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you are one of my veterans of the month. I didn't realize I was about out of time. You are one of my veterans of the month. So thank you so much for everything that you have done, for being in the service and all the fun times. And don't go anywhere because we're going to catch up with Harry and see what we come up with, which again, I am a little scared, but it'll be a good time. Thanks, Dave.
We won't embarrass you too much.
Awesome. Yeah, right. No Speedos, folks. Hey, I'll be back in just a minute. It's Downhill with Tina.
Hey guys, it's me, Isabella Gomez, filling in for Smokey Bear because he's got more to say than just...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Like, if you're outside enjoying a barbecue, don't let a hamburger distract you from fire safety. Make sure you aren't dumping your hot coals or ashes onto the ground because that could start a wildfire. So take wildfire prevention seriously and let's save the world one day at a time. Juntos con Smokey Bear, podemos hacerlo. Go to smokeybear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Down Home with Tina is brought to you by these amazing sponsors. And folks, just going to take the last few minutes here and ask my Veterans of the Month, who is Dave Dotson and Harry Evans. Dave had retired from the U.S. Army Reserves as Major, and then Lieutenant Colonel Harry Evans, he had retired. Dave, it was 22 years, Harry, 27 years. And I want to ask you, if we can get this in, what do you miss the most?
Probably the same thing you both miss the most. And, you know, the people that we were blessed to work with. Mm-hmm. I have to tell you, and I'm sure the Colonel would echo the same thing, you know, the people who we were, you know, fortunate enough to have work with us are the ones that made life easy. And it was, you know, the NCOs, the enlisted. You made my life easy for a lot of years.
Yeah, you know, well, I tried to make sure that, you know, things got done the way they were supposed to. Well, thank you. At least I behaved on the clock. No, I behaved all the time. We just had a lot of fun times.
Yeah, we did. It was enjoyable.
Great memories. You work hard, then you, I don't want to say play hard, but we did. But we always showed up, never late, and always on time. And I know I didn't even get to talk about this part, but you two were runners, and that encouraged me to want to run. And I don't know how you ran when you were up and we were out so late, but you were dedicated to that. And that in itself was just really hard work. And I wanted to just ask you then, Harry, what do you miss the most?
Again, pretty much the same as we've echoed here. You know, just a real quick story with Dave. I first met him. He was a cadet before he got his commission, before he got finished up his college, and I think we were at Fort Bliss for
Snake
active
Patrol.
duty.
You're not going to tell the Snake Patrol.
Yeah,
story.
oh yeah. For we were ADT for 2 weeks, active duty for 2 weeks, our summer camp or summer training, and. One of the mornings we were up like at 3:30 in the morning to go to set up for the PT test that you would do sometime during that 2-week period, and it was no fun. And Fort Bliss, temperature-wise, gets into the hundreds because it was in July or something. I mean, it was crazy. But at any rate, we were out there, and the story was that in Fort Bliss there were a lot of these big tarantulas, spiders, and snakes all over the place. So while we were kind of looking at this track because it was midnight, I mean, well, it was pitch black still. At any rate, we were out there getting ready to do that. So I had Dave and the other cadet, because I was a major at this time, I believe, or maybe a senior captain, but at any rate, I had them out just kind of walking the track so that if anybody got attacked by tarantulas, it would be a cadet who not many people worried about that.
It was expendable.
They were expendable.
You wouldn't have to do a whole lot of paperwork and all that stuff. So yeah,
have a great week. Sorry, open it. I'll be back next week. God bless. Good day. You go ahead.